All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Welcome, everyone. Today we're unpacking a story that is just absolutely fascinating. It's a classic folktale, one that's been passed down for generations, and honestly, it is hilarious but at the same time incredibly profound. It's all about an innocent orphan, a super strict guru, and a divine encounter that goes completely, wonderfully off the rails. It brilliantly explores that built-in tension we often see between strict religious dogma and just pure, unfiltered faith.
So let me ask you this. What happens when you treat God like an uninvited dinner guest? No, seriously. We're so used to these stories where encountering the divine is this solemn, incredibly serious affair, right? But this narrative turns that whole idea completely upside down. It asks us to imagine a scenario where heavenly beings showing up for dinner isn't some miraculous blessing, but rather a massive, annoying inconvenience to a very hungry young man.
Okay, so let's get into it. Part 1. The Hungry Orphan. We start with this young orphan boy who lives all alone by the banks of the Ganges River. He's got no parents, no money, and zero formal education. But what he lacks in material goods, he more than makes up for with his appetite. It's legendary. One day, a revered ashram guru named Babaji crosses paths with this boy, takes pity on him, and invites him to live at the ashram. But Babaji quickly learns something about the boy's appetite. See, everyone just calls the boy Adhaiya. In Hindi, Adhai translates to 2.5. And he got this nickname for a very practical reason. Every single day, without fail, he demands exactly 2.5 kilograms of bati, which is this really thick, hearty Indian bread, along with a literal mountain of vegetables, rice, and sweets. 2.5 kilos just for himself. That is wild. Babaji is honestly just amused by the sheer gluttony of it all, so he agrees to feed him, and Adhaiya officially joins the ashram.
But, as you might guess, this perfect little setup doesn't last. That brings us to part 2. The Ekadashi Ultimatum. You see, an ashram isn't an all-you-can-eat buffet. It's a place of strict discipline, and a collision course is basically set the second the ashram's sacred fasting days roll around. On one side, we've got Babaji's rules. Twice a month, during the lunar phases known as Ekadashi, the entire ashram observes a strict fast. The stoves stay cold, and absolutely no food is cooked. On the other side, we have Adhaiya's rules. Fasting? Yeah, absolutely out of the question for this kid. He tells Babaji straight up, "Look, I need my 2.5 kilos of food. Either change your rules or I'm out of here." But Adhaiya does offer a workaround. He knows how to cook, so he says he'll just take his raw ingredients, go deep into the forest, far away from the ashram, and cook his meal out there so he doesn't visually break the ashram's fast.
Babaji is pretty exasperated, but he reluctantly agrees to give Adhaiya the raw flour and supplies. However, he adds one vital condition, just to maintain some semblance of spirituality. He tells the boy, when the food is ready, just fold your hands and call Thakurji, meaning the Lord, to eat. Now Babaji is talking about the ritual of offering food to the divine spiritually before you eat it yourself. It's a metaphor. It's a symbolic gesture, right? Just a quiet moment of prayer.
The thing is, Adhaiya doesn't do metaphors. He does not understand symbolic gestures. Which leads us to part 3, the divine plus ones.
Our guy is purely literal. He hauls his raw ingredients into the forest, cooks up this massive meal, folds his hands, and literally yells out into the woods for God to come grab a bite. And because his call is just so startlingly innocent and pure, Lord Ram actually manifests right there in the forest, sits down and eats the food. Adhaiya is super annoyed, obviously, but he lets it happen. Well, the next Ekadashi fast rolls around 2 weeks later. Adhaiya cooks, calls out again, but this time, Lord Ram brings his wife, Janaki. The Ekadashi after that, Ram brings Janaki and his brother Lakshman. And on the 4th Ekadashi, the divine monkey god Hanuman joins the party too. The divine guest list is just snowballing.
And here is where it just gets so incredibly funny. Look at the math on this. On the first Ekadashi, Adhaiya took his standard 2.5 kilograms of flour. Because Ram showed up and ate it, Adhaiya went completely hungry. So the next time he asks Babaji for 5 kilos. But Ram brings his wife, so they eat it all. The third time, Adhaiya demands 7.5 kilos, then 10 kilos. Babaji is just completely baffled. He cannot figure out why this one single boy suddenly needs enough flour to feed a small army. When Babaji finally questions him about it, Adhaiya just erupts. He goes to his guru and literally complains about God. He's shouting, "He's married. Why didn't you tell me both husband and wife would come to eat my food?" Adhaiya is calling the divine guests gluttons, complaining that they have absolute zero table manners. And Babaji is just listening to this, thinking the boy is completely losing his mind. Because, come on, God doesn't just physically show up for dinner.
But Adhaiya isn't crazy, He's just hungry and fed up. And this sets the stage perfectly for part 4, the cosmic feast.
So we hit the 5th Ekadashi. Adhaiya demands a whopping 12.5 kilos of flour and drags it all into the forest. But this time, he is changing the rules. When the divine family of 4 shows up expecting a hot meal, Adhaiya points at the raw flour and is basically like, nope, I've cooked for you for a month. Today, you guys are working. It is just so funny. He starts assigning chores to the supreme deities of the universe. He tells Lakshman to go chop the wood. He tells Hanuman to use his powers to light the fire. He tells Janaki to knead the dough and cook the meal. And astonishingly, out of love for his pure innocence, the gods comply. They literally cook the meal while Adhaiya sits back, just waiting to finally get to eat.
But just as Adhaiya finally sits down with this massive, hard-earned plate of food, Lord Ram stops him. Ram looks at him and says, "Wait, just like your guru has a Thakur, a god to invite, my Thakur has a Thakur too. I cannot eat until I invite my lord." Adhaiya is absolutely horrified. He realizes the guest list is about to expand all over again.
And then, the sky just darkens. Unseasonal thunder starts rolling across the heavens. Prompted by Ram's invitation, Lord Shiva, his wife Parvati, and all of Shiva's celestial attendants descend right into the forest. What started as one hungry boy just trying to eat his bread has suddenly transformed into this massive, earth-shaking cosmic gathering. The sheer scale of the divine presence is just totally overwhelming.
And that brings us to the real heart of our explainer today. Part 5. Innocence over rituals.
Adhaiya is completely terrified and awestruck by this cosmic event, and he only ends up getting this tiny little supari-sized crumb of the divine food. But the second he tastes it, his hunger completely vanishes. This deep spiritual awakening washes over him, and he finally realizes exactly who he has been feeding all this time. The secret behind all this? It's Bhavna. That is the entire moral engine of this source material. Ram explains to the boy that he didn't manifest because Adhaiya followed the ashram rules perfectly. He didn't show up because of some complex mantras. He manifested because of Adhaiya's Bhavna, his pure, unfiltered, highly literal, and just totally innocent intention. Adhaiya called out to God exactly the same way you would yell for a friend in the next room. That raw authenticity is exactly what the divine responded to.
Adhaiya is desperate to prove he hasn't been making this all up, right? So he runs back and drags Babaji out into the forest before the gods depart. When Babaji gets there, he is completely stunned by the contrast. I mean, think about it. Babaji has spent nearly 100 years strictly adhering to ashram rules. He's fasted perfectly twice a month, never missed a single ritual, and yet he has never once seen the divine. Adhaiya broke literally all the fasting rules, complained constantly, but he possessed an immense, innocent purity that brought the heavens right to his doorstep.
The story wraps up with this incredibly moving reversal. The highly educated, disciplined guru literally falls to his knees and bows to the illiterate, perpetually hungry orphan. Babaji tells him, "You are great. Because of your revolution, I finally saw my Hari." The guru realizes that all his decades of mechanical rituals were basically empty without the pure intention that Adhaiya just naturally possessed.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a question to chew on. Whether you're learning a new skill, building a business, or maybe you're on a personal spiritual journey, ask yourself, are your own pursuits driven by rigid mechanical rules where you're really just going through the motions, or are they driven by pure, innocent intention, by true bhavna? Sometimes doing things perfectly matters a whole lot less than doing them with all your heart. Thank you so much for hanging out with me to explore this incredible story, and I will see you in the next one.